Sometimes, sharing your dreams too soon can drain their energy, letting doubt, fear, and unintended negativity creep in before they even have a chance to grow. True power lies in nurturing your vision in silence, letting action, not words, bring it to life. Ravi was a young man with a heart full of fire and a mind overflowing with ideas. Ever since he could remember, he had dreamed of creating his own art studio, a sanctuary where colors, imagination, and creativity could flow freely. In his mind, it wasn't just a studio, it was a place that could inspire people, give them courage to create, and make them feel alive in a world that often tried to dull their spark. Every brushstroke he made in his sketchbooks, every small piece of art he carried in his bag, was a fragment of that dream, a whisper of what could be. Growing up, Robbie had always been the kind of person who carried excitement in his chest like a small, secret fire. At school, he would stay late, experimenting with paints, mixing colors, and trying to capture emotions on canvas. His parents noticed his passion, but often told him gently to be practical. They were loving and supportive, but there was always an underlying worry that dreams, no matter how brilliant, could get crushed by reality. One evening, Robbie was having dinner with his close friends. The air was light, filled with laughter and teasing, and Robbie felt that familiar urge to share the vision that had been burning inside him for years. "I'm going to open my own art studio next year," he said, his voice bright with excitement. His friends froze for a second. Some smiled politely, but a few exchanged looks that made Robbie's stomach twist. "Wow, that's ambitious," one of them said awkwardly. Another laughed nervously. "Are you sure, Ravi? It's risky." Robbie brushed it off, thinking that maybe they just didn't understand. That night, however, when he lay in bed, he felt a strange mix of pride and anxiety. He had told everyone. It felt like a victory. But deep down, a small seed of doubt had already taken root. In the following weeks, Ravi tried to put his plan into motion. He started looking for spaces, approached suppliers for materials, and even tried contacting potential mentors. But strange things began to happen. The first space he had liked was suddenly unavailable. A supplier who had promised to help him vanished without explanation. People who had once encouraged him now seemed distant or hesitant. Every step forward came with two steps back. Robbie felt frustrated, angry even. He couldn't understand it. He had been careful, meticulous, passionate. Why did it feel like the universe itself was conspiring against him? His friends' earlier reactions began to replay in his mind, like echoes. Maybe they were right. Maybe he had been foolish to talk about it so openly. One rainy afternoon, feeling defeated, Robbie sat alone in a small cafe staring out at the gray streets and dripping umbrellas. That's when he noticed an elderly man sitting at a nearby table, his hands covered in dried paint, brushes sticking out of a worn cup. The man's eyes were kind and sharp, and something about him radiated calm confidence. He was Mr. Sharma, a well-known artist in the city, famous for his paintings that seemed to breathe life. Robbie felt drawn to him, almost instinctively. After a few moments of hesitation, Robbie approached him. "Excuse me, sir, I couldn't help noticing your work," he began. Mr. Sharma smiled and gestured to an empty chair. "Sit, tell me what's on your mind," he said. Robbie poured out everything. The dream, the excitement, the setbacks, the confusion. "I told everyone about my studio. I thought that would make it real, but now nothing works. Doors close, people hesitate. I don't understand." His voice cracked with frustration. Mr. Sharma listened quietly, nodding occasionally. When Ravi finally stopped, the old artist leaned back, smiled, and said, "Ah, young man, I see the problem. The dream is not failing because it is weak, it is failing because it was spoken too soon." Ravi frowned. "What do you mean?" "Dreams," Mr. Sharma explained gently, "are like seeds. When they are small, delicate, and full of potential, they need careful nurturing. If you expose them to the world too early, especially to those who cannot nurture them, the energy leaks out. Doubts seep in, from others, from yourself. Negativity finds a foothold. The universe does not punish you for speaking your dream, but it does respond to the vibration of focus and energy. If that energy disperses into words too early, the seed struggles to grow." Ravi's mind whirled. "So I should have kept it to myself?" Yes, Mr. Sharma said with a knowing smile, not out of fear or secrecy, but out of protection. Work on it quietly. Build it step by step. Let your actions speak when the time is right. People respect results far more than promises or ideas. Silence is not weakness, it is strategy. Ravi left the cafe that day feeling a strange mix of clarity and relief. The rain was still falling, but it felt like it was washing away some of the frustration. He realized that he had wasted energy trying to convince others, seeking approval, and explaining his dream, instead of focusing that energy on the dream itself. He decided to take a new approach. He stopped announcing his plans, stopped seeking validation. Each morning, he woke early and painted, planned, and researched. He rented a small, forgotten space in an old neighborhood and began fixing it himself. He painted the walls, repaired broken shelves, laid down the floors, and built display spans with his own hands. Every evening, exhausted but satisfied, he would sit quietly, looking at the progress and thinking, "This is my dream and I am making it real." Months passed. The studio began to take shape, quietly and steadily. Robbie worked tirelessly, often alone, sometimes skipping meals or sleep to make sure every detail reflected his vision. There were moments of doubt, of course, nights when he wondered if the effort was worth it. But each morning he returned to the work, letting the grown space speak to him, guide him, and strengthen his resolve. Then, finally, the day came. The studio was ready. Robbie decided to have a small private opening, inviting only a few artists whose work he truly admired. The response was overwhelming. People walked in, eyes wide, hearts touched. They didn't just see the studio, they felt the energy, the passion, the thought, and love poured into every corner. Word spread, slowly but surely, and soon the studio became a hub of creativity. Workshops were booked, exhibitions held, and students came from all over to learn, create, and be inspired. Robbie's dream had survived, grown, and flourished, not because he had spoken it out loud to the world, but because he had nurtured it in silence. The obstacles that had once seemed insurmountable had been overcome quietly, step by step, with patience, focus, and persistence. Years later, Ravi often looked back at that rainy afternoon in the cafe and smiled. Mr. Sharma had given him a lesson that shaped his life: the power of silence. Dreams, when shared too early, can die slowly, suffocated by doubt or diluted by outside energy. But when protected, nurtured, and built quietly, they grow strong enough to withstand any storm. And Ravi never forgot that lesson. Every night, after locking the studio doors, he would walk among the rows of canvases, whispering to himself, not to anyone else, "This is my dream and I will make it last." He also began mentoring young artists who approached him, teaching them not only techniques, but the philosophy he had learned the hard way. He would tell them, "Keep your dreams close, nurture them in silence, and let your work speak when the time is right. People will admire results far more than words, and most importantly, protect your vision until it's strong enough to shine." In time, Ravi's studio became more than just a place to create. It became a symbol of quiet determination, of patience, and of the mysterious but undeniable power of silence. Artists who came to him not only learned how to paint, they learned how to honor their own dreams, to hold them sacred until the moment was right. Ravi understood that life was full of distractions, advice, criticism, and doubt, but he also understood that none of these things mattered if the dreamer had the courage to work in silence. Speaking a dream is easy. Building it quietly, day by day, is hard. And it is in that hard, unseen work that dreams are truly born, grow, and survive. And so, Ravi's story became a lesson for anyone who wished to dream. Speak less, do more. Protect your vision, and let the world marvel at what you have built, not because you announced it, but because it is undeniable, tangible, and alive.